I have often been the only woman in the room, and certainly the only black woman in the room for the last 30 years of my experience in my career. And so I share that because so many of you are probably in the same boat as I have been in, but it can be an opportunity for us to understand how important it is for us to each one reach back and mentor and share our experiences and opportunities that come to us. I was just having an interesting conversation with a young lady that I'm going to introduce you to later on in this work, but I have a motto. I will only pour into those who pour into others, right? It is a vast opportunity, and not enough people understand about the opportunity. So when you're in the room and you know about what it takes to succeed, it is incumbent upon us to reach back and share that and mentor others so that they can be at the table as well. We have to stop thinking about competition as a bad thing. There is so much opportunity that there's more than enough to go around. The biggest problem we're facing at DOE as we knock down the barriers and create transparency is that there is not enough MWBE firms to do the services that we need to deliver or the capacity to deliver the goods and services that we're looking to solicit. So please, as you navigate around here and think about your business, think about partnership opportunities that can help you. I spent the day yesterday in Albany, going to the state of the state, and it was exciting to see the first woman governor of the state of New York. And so I did not want to miss that state of the state. And I spent some time with some of my colleagues in the MWBE space. And every time we talk about what success looks like and which demographics, groups of men, women, race that are succeeding, the number one component for success is partnership and mentorship. And so I want to reinforce that because I know women, as a woman I can say this, right? We are known to not be always collaborative, not always create partnerships, and without that, you will get a little bit, but there's so much more to be had if we take the time to be intentional around the work that we do it well, but to also be a glimmer of hope and light, to light the way for those who are coming behind us, right? It never feels good to be the only one in the room. It just doesn't. I don't know how many of you have been there and can say that, but I can say it personally, having grown up in Boston. Oftentimes I was the only black person in the room. I got used to that, but I made it work for me. I moved to DC. I thought I had died and gone to black heaven, right? Had to check myself twice. And I became better when there was more people that looked like me that I could collaborate with and partner with. And I would say I have lots of white colleagues that I partner with and are champions and have supported our work. So it's not to say it's just about race, it's to say it's about partnership. And as women in this environment, men, no slight on you guys, we're taking a lesson from you. But women, we have an opportunity to do better and to be better and support each other. So with that, now I'll start my presentation. So I am the first Chief Diversity Officer of New York City Public Schools. Never been done before, and I am privileged to be in that position and welcome the confidence that was placed in me by the Chancellor, David Banks, and by the Mayor, Eric Adams. I've spent, this is my first stint in public service. I've spent most of my career in private institutions. The most notable is I worked for Scholastic Publishing for 20 years. And through that experience, for about 15 years, I was the only woman of color with a P&L responsibility, right? That led a business. And what that means is there was a lot of people of color in HR positions, a lot of people in color in sales positions, but never one that led an organization with a P&L responsibility. My revenue went up to about $400 million on an annual basis. I increased my revenue double digits every year for 15 years. What did that do for me? Often I was the only one in the room, but it gave me the ability to dictate and do whatever I wanted. Dick Robinson, may he rest in peace, was a huge friend and a great mentor. And he appreciated the work that I did, and he allowed me the opportunity to have liberty. So 2 years in a row, I built a business called Family Face, Scholastic Face, Family and Community Engagement. And it was a small little engine that could. And as I built this business to provide resources and low-income communities, to provide resources, mentoring resources for students, books into schools, books into the home. Through that experience, I was able to distribute almost 1 billion books into households and communities of color. And as we all know, for those of us in education, book deserts are a real thing. You can find one book for every something like 30 children, but on every corner you can find a liquor store. That's a problem. And so through that experience, because of my success, I was given a liberty and freedom to build things out, to test things out. And one of the things that I always did was to mentor young women of color through this process to come up behind me. Before I left Scholastic, I had promoted probably 10 women of color from administrative positions to vice presidents or higher. Wow. I had worked with many women who had gone on to take other positions in other publishing roles, and that really broke the glass ceiling. So the reality is the glass ceiling exists everywhere. One of the things that I did while I was at Scholastic is during my tenure, I was able to give away a car as part of my promotions for my staff. And everybody in the company complained as to why Karine could do that. But Karine could do that because she was successful, and I could show the results of not just the revenue, but of staff development, right? Yes. So I share that story to say we all have the power of something that we're strong at that somebody else would be willing, needs from us. And as we pour, as somebody pours into you, it is important that you pour into somebody else. Following Scholastic, I did a short stint as a CEO of Reading Partners, reading organization nationally where we served children with one-on-one tutoring. That was a great experience, turned that business around. And then when Chancellor Banks gave me a call about what he was doing and the work he was trying to do, I quickly decided this is where I wanted to be. I have a long relationship with him, have faith in the work that he's doing, and know that this would be a winning team, and I am a winner. So I wanted to be part of this because, first and foremost, I am who I am because of education. My mom is an immigrant from Haiti, and she was crystal clear about the importance of education. And in our household growing up, we would come home and we'd have to go do our homework before we could do anything. And I knew the difference because as the doorbell rang every night, everybody was outside except for us. And my mom was deliberate about that. And so as I thought about that experience, I used to think as I got older, this lady was crazy, right? But because of that, I also saw the difference in my experience as I decided to go to college. When I came out of college, I had a management position right away. And so all those experiences worked for me. And as an adult, you come to understand what education looks like and why my mom was so crazy. Fast forward to a few years ago, my youngest shared the same experience with me. As a proud mom, he was accepted into every Ivy League school. And he said to me as we were coming out of UPenn where he ended up, he said, "Mom, you know, we used to think you were crazy." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Because everybody's out playing. Every summer they had to do, every day they had to do an hour's worth of work before they went out." And he said, "I used to think you were crazy, but now I realize as a result of your value on education is why I have this opportunity." So it comes full circle. And so as I thought my mom was crazy, my children thought also I was crazy. Next slide. I'm going to jump right in now. So we're going to talk about the opportunities that are at DOE. I cannot stress it enough. I know that there's 100 stories in here about having tried to work with the DOE and not getting calls back and how difficult and complex it is. So we're going to go through, and all that is true. That's in the past. We're forging a new way forward. And the DOE is making the investments and making those changes by building a team that is dedicated, committed, and focused on making this happen. Before I go into the agenda, I want to just take a quick minute to introduce my team that's here. I have Karine, who leads our work in the Office of Supply Diversity. Amazing young woman, was here before I started, and so I was blessed to inherit her and all the work that she was doing in her passion. We have David Anderson, who leads our policy and business development work. We have Pesky from our procurement area, who's also doing quite a bit of work. And we have Leslie Dunn, who's leading our work around marketing and business development. Why this is important that I share this, this is an entire new team that we're building, because we understand that we have work to do internally, but some of our biggest opportunities is around how we identify businesses and small businesses that we can work with and mentor to be contracted vendors for DOE. So we'll go through our mission. We'll talk about why diversity is so important based on our student demographics and their families. We'll do a district overview so you have a greater sense of the magnitude of our organization. We want to talk about the top 10 services and goods that we purchase, right? When people think about DOE or public schools, they think about books, they think about professional development, but there's so much more to that, and I'll talk to you about that. We want to talk about all the innovations that have taken place within the Department of Education in New York City Public Schools. And finally, we want to do a quick review for you of the procurement policy and procedures amendments, which are the rules and the Bibles of the New York City Public Schools solicitations and contracting. Next slide, please. So our mission is very, very, very clear. We want to foster meaningful participation of diverse partners and vendors. Full stop. The DOE is a $38 billion agency. It is the largest in New York City, the largest in New York City, and in the top 5 in the state. So when you think about that magnitude of $38 billion, unfortunately, less than 3% of that is going to MWBEs. Less than 3%. And when you disaggregate that by ethnicity, it's even worse. Okay? We want to identify a vendor pool that is representative of our diverse students and families and communities. We want to create business opportunities for minority and women-owned businesses, enterprises, and that is you. So it's important that you understand the procedures, the process, the how, the what, and the why. And ultimately, we want to ensure that DOE has the goods and services needed to provide a quality education for our students that reflect their needs on an ongoing basis. I tell this story about when I first started, one of the issues, one of the silver linings, if any, of COVID, and I wouldn't even call it a silver lining, is after schools were closed for 2 years, one of the things that DOE experienced was that there was a real need in community within different languages to support families and students. And unfortunately, because the DOE had not done a good job creating those relationships and partnerships with smaller organizations that were providing services in communities and schools, we had a difficult time getting the necessary resources to support students in their language, in their homes, and in their culture. So that in and of itself created a huge priority and shone a light on the disparity of the businesses that existed to support this work. Next slide. When we talk about our student demographics, first of all, we serve over 1.2 students in New York City, and that is including our charter school students. Of that, just over 40% are Hispanic, 25.5%, about 26% are Black, 16% Asian, and 15% white. And our diversity numbers are continuing to grow. So when you look at the city and the students in the city, there is a huge economic opportunity that must be shared across all demographics. It is time to change the 97% of businesses going to white firms and expanding that 3% of MWBEs for minority and women-owned businesses. Next slide. Our district overview, again, very, very expansive. We have over 1,866 schools, including 260 charters. We are the top property owner in New York City with just over 362 million square feet of space. That is a daunting amount of real estate. We rank 5th among city agencies with the most addresses. We are second only to the military in the number of people we feed daily. And we have 130,000 employees. And we spend between $10 and $12 billion a year, depending on the budget, on goods and services. So when you look at our overview, why is that important? It is important because we do a whole lot more than books and educational services. Next slide. These are the top 10 services and goods that we procure. Student transportation is number 1. Infrastructure, maintenance, and repair. All those buildings require maintenance, upgrade, and this is separate from school construction. The School Construction Authority have their own budget and have their own contractors for building. But once the buildings are up, we have lots of schools that are 50, 60, 70 years old that require ongoing maintenance on a regular basis. Professional services and educational. Daycare and early childhood, that's continuing to expand. Instructional supplies. General supplies. Food, and food is year-round because of summer school, and all these services are year-round because of summer school. Data processing equipment, building and material supplies, and at the bottom of that 10 is textbooks. And textbooks really covers all books, right? So this is the diversity of the goods and services that are just at the top 10 of what we procure. Below that, it can be anything from painting, food, distribution, delivery. There's a million other goods and services that we procure that we need support with from MWBEs. So, I talked about the innovations that we are looking to do. I wanted to highlight just a few of them. First and foremost, I don't know why I put that up there, what's important about this is not that it's me, is the fact that it was such a priority that the chancellor and the mayor made the decision to appoint a chief diversity officer. And in a school system as diverse as New York City, the question would be asked, why am I the first? Right? This should have been happening a long time ago. However, let's not look backwards, let's look forward. This is the opportunity now for us to make a huge difference. And as you heard about my history, I am a winner. I do not take no for an answer. And so without you, we will not succeed. And so I am crystal clear about the partnership opportunities that we need to foster with you and how important you are to the equation. Because no matter what we do, if we do not have the vendors that can develop and grow to do services for New York City public schools, we will never make our objectives and goals on expanding the opportunity for MWBEs. So to that end, the changes we've made, now every department within the New York City Department of Education has an MWBE goal. Never been done before. Never been done before. So now every deputy chancellor has a goal that reports up to the chancellor, and the chancellor reports up to the mayor. Every chief executive has a goal. Every program officer has a goal. And the beautiful thing about this experience is we've just hired a new chief procurement officer who I recruited to the DOE, and she's a good friend, and she's a dotted line report with NWBE, and in partnership is making the changes within the Department of Contracting and Procurement to support the MWBE work that we're doing. So it's not the left hand doesn't understand what the right hand is doing. It is the collaboration and the partnership that I talked about that's happening right within New York City Department of Education. Never been done before, but it's necessary for us to succeed. We've created internal directories of goods and services that are searchable by MWBE specifically. So while there's not many of you today, the goal is to expand that exponentially so we don't have to necessarily do this, right? We should be able to just flip a page and see, 30% MWBEs and make it much easier. But until that happens, we're being deliberate, intentional, and building the resources, not just for our office, but for every department and every program office to be able to identify MWBE firms on a very consistent and regular basis. In addition to that, we're promoting the work that you do, we're promoting your capacity, and we're working to increase contracting opportunities. And ultimately, we've seen a growth in just the past year because of these strategies that have been implemented. This year is a huge focus on expanding all of this work in a deliberate way and making sure that we're tracking the results. And so I mentioned the goals that have been established. We're doing monthly reports and sharing them with the program team as well as the leadership team, because what gets measured gets done. Next slide, please. The PPP, the infamous PPP. So the procurement policy and procedures are the rules that govern the New York City Department of Education's solicitations, contracting, and purchases. It is our Bible. And in November, we spent the entire first year looking at the PPP rules and identifying opportunities that need to change legally and policy to increase MWBE. So I am proud to say it was a labor of love for me and the entire team. Every month was something else, reason why not, how to make it work. On November 30th, the PEP, which is the Education Board, voted unanimously to approve these changes. So what does that mean for you? First one is MWBE's simplified procurements. In the past, all simplified procurements required 3 quotes. So it was burdensome, especially for our educators and our school leaders or purchasing agents, that it required 3 quotes to get services, whether from MWB or anybody else. And what they found was when they had to do that, oftentimes the larger firms would outbid the smaller firms because they had volume, they had capacity, and quite frankly, sometimes they would take a loss so that they can get the contract. This here creates an opportunity for all MWBEs to do goods and services up to $25,000 without a competition. So if you have a relationship with a school or a district or a BCO or even central office and you have a service, you can get a contract or get a purchase up to $25,000 without competition, right? Big deal for our vendors, because that allows our smaller vendors to continue to do that as they build their revenue and build their capacity to get to the next level. Second change to the PPP was to provide point and price preference for MWBE vendors, city or state certified. What does that mean? Again, in a solicitation and contracting, we're going to be able to provide a certain level of points on best value contract solicitation that gives MWBs a bit of a boost so that they can be competitive with some of the larger firms. Same thing with price preference. Again, if somebody has a volume, you really can't compete with Staples, right? Because they have such large volumes. But we can put a price preference above 10% to try to get the best value to get MWB firms as part of the solicitation process and contracting with the Department of Education. And third is the subcontracting admin code 6129, which is the biggest one. Admin code 6129 is city law that's been in place for a long time, but the New York City Public Schools have never participated or adhered, or it wasn't part of our rules, so we didn't have to do it. Basically what that means is on all contracts that we deem large contracts, we can add to the solicitation a requirement of 30% or higher for MWBE utilization. What does that mean? If there's a big book company, you may not do anything with books, but you may have an opportunity to do a logistics, delivery. If there's air filters, you may need a distribution. There's logistical needs, there's printing needs, there's services needs, and now that is part of the New York City Department of Education's rules for procurement and solicitation. So this could be huge. That means if a $10 million contract goes out with a 30% MWBE, that's $3 million that has to be distributed amongst MWBEs. If there's a $100 million solicitation, that would be approximately $30 million. Or we could decide and determine that there's a greater opportunity for MWBEs and we raise it to $40 million, right? It gives us the flexibility to increase MWBE participation through subcontracting. This is really, really important because now you're talking about access to much larger opportunities and having the organizations that have the capacity, the capability to do some of these large contracts is going to be critically important for our success in increasing utilization. We also are being deliberate to address what we call the disparity within the disparity. Because within that 3% disparity of MWBEs, we have ethnicities within that disparity that are still woefully underutilized. Start with Hispanic firms are at about 0.2 of the 3%. Black firms are at about 0.4 of the 3%. And when you look at the demographics of our students and communities, they are 60% of our students and communities, but their Black and Hispanic businesses are less than 0.5% of the overall Department of Education spend. That is woefully low, and as we are uplifting all MWBE, we're also keeping our eyes on the disparity within the disparity. So to that end, before I move forward, I want to invite up, Jagil, to just tell a little story about her experience with the DOE and how she became a vendor through a subcontracting opportunity.
Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year's. Oh, thank you. Yes, pretty heavy. My name is Shahir Rosario, and I own a logistic company located.
Mike's lower the mic a little bit.
Sorry. Much better? I'm going to repeat myself. My name is Shahir Rosario. I own a logistic company named Turbo Express Transportation. I'm located in JFK, and I have a warehouse in Passaic, New Jersey. So it all started when I was 8 months pregnant, November 23rd, 2020. About 8 p.m., I received a phone call from a supplier telling me that I needed to get a bigger warehouse and I needed to be ready to supply all the schools in the 5 boroughs with filters. There was during the pandemic, as you all may know, it's hard to get a driver, hard to get workers back on. And I said yes. And next thing, I called the next morning, I called a warehouse, I got the warehouse, and I started delivering filters for the DOE. And next thing you know, I gave labor, I had a C-section. 8 a.m. I gave birth, 3 p.m. I was working on my laptop. Oh my God. So it's like, you know, but just wanted to tell you, like, I got a $1 million deal, and like Karine was saying, we must import into each other for more success, opportunity, and mentor. So it's something that we all have to look forward and work together. Anything else? I'm nervous. I'm so nervous.
I just have to say how proud I am of her. As I heard her story, there's so many people like her that could do so much more. And what I said to her is, what happens when you get the call that they have a $10 million opportunity? What are you going to do? And this goes back to when we talk about the partnership and building each other up so that you can be prepared for the larger opportunities because they are coming. When I was out at State of the State with, like I said, with a couple of men yesterday, and when I asked the question, what makes firms succeed or companies grow, they said it's truly about the partnership. So as she had this opportunity, she will never be able to do all the logistics that the New York City Department of Education requires. Never. Not in 100 years. If there was a $10 billion opportunity, she couldn't handle it. But she got $1 million. When it's time to get the $10 million opportunity, she probably wouldn't qualify because there would be an expectation that she doesn't have the capacity. Now, what she could do is, after this $1 million opportunity that she did a great job with, is to start to line up her partners to solicit for the $3 million and the $5 million and the $10 million. And while she's succeeding, they're succeeding. So when I talk about subcontracting, if we are subcontracting to MWBE, my expectation is that the MWBE is going to subcontract to another MWBE. Because that's the only way you will create the groundswell that's necessary to get to that increased utilization that we must get to. We have 3 more years in this administration, and there is a fierce urgency of now to make this happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
So again, as we think about subcontracting, mentorship, we're going to be building a mentorship program. We're going to be doing a lot more subcontracting and working with organizations to ensure that we're able to reach the MWBE organizations that exist here and work to expand MWBEs. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to end my talk. To reach us, please email us at mwbe@schools.nyc.gov. Again, we host monthly training webinars on a regular basis. We are available as we knock down the barriers internally and create a more streamlined process. We have to have vendors and firms that are ready to partner with the DOE and will work to get you there. So please stay connected and stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Karine. And one of the things that Yahin forgot to mention, of course, is that we are the organization that got her MWB certified with the City of New York. So if you are looking at, assuming that you're all certified, please, by show of hands, if you can, by show of hands, just show how many of you are certified with the city. Excellent. Woo! Yes.
So thank you for your partnership. It is really, really important that you get certified because if you are not certified, you cannot participate and take advantage of these programs. So certification is key, and this lady and SBS will help you to do that. Thank you.
And if you're not certified with the state, also reach out so you can get your certification with the state because that's also very important. Those are 2 big piles of money, the city and the state, separate. So in order to access the contracts with the state, you also need to be state certified, so reach out if you're not. So I'm going to now give time for you to walk around. I know that you're a little impatient to do that, and the agencies are a little impatient to talk to all of you, so why don't we just make a rounds and talk to the city agencies. And let's contract her, please.